am Lauren, the oldest grandkid and Steve and Linda's daughter. My grandfather, or as all the grandkids like to call him Pa, will always be remembered as a funny, adventurous, family-loving man. He never once let his battle with cancer keep him from doing something he loved. Whether he was on the soccer field, having a debate, or creating his next invention, he always gave it his all. I have many great memories of Pa at the beach, lake, and on the soccer field, but one that sticks out in my mind is when I was about 11 years old. We were down visiting Guy and Pa in Myrtle Beach when Pa took me out for a golf cart right after dinner. We were having a great time exploring and decided to take a walk on the beach. When we were returning to the golf cart, we noticed a police car sitting next to it. Since it was illegal to be out after dark, we decided to hang out for a little bit in hopes the police car would leave. We walked up a block or two and returned to find the police had left. While I stood on lookout, Pa quickly got in the golf cart and I hopped in. We sped home. We both walked in laughing and grinning, so proud of ourselves for evading the police and being a bit mischievous. Even though you will be missed by so many, you have taught us all to love our family and friends and always have fun with whatever you're doing. You always put a smile on my face, and I smile knowing you are pain-free and looking down on us. Rest easy, Pa.
Hi, I'm Ashley. I'm the third oldest grandchild and the daughter of Steve, the oldest son, and Linda. As young children, all of the grandkids of course love spending time with our grandpa. I consider myself especially lucky since our birthdays were only 3 days apart. We always got to have family celebrations together. Both Guy and Pa sat through our many games, recitals, and competitions. But soccer was always Pa's favorite sport, so I think he was secretly happy when I quit dance and started playing soccer. No matter what the activity was, Pa was always there to show his support for his family. It seems the older you get, the more you can appreciate your grandparents for the kind of person they truly are, and I consider myself lucky to have had such a remarkable person as my Pa. He was hardworking, intelligent, strong-willed, witty, courageous, kind, and the list goes on and on. He always had a knack for inventions and always wanted to learn more. He even used to take our old college textbooks to read for fun. He believed you make mistakes, you take responsibility from them, learn from them, and move on. He devoted all of his time to his family and was always focused on having new experiences and making new memories rather than material items. Of all of his wonderful qualities, one of my favorite things about Pa was how he never took life too seriously and was always there for a fun, albeit sometimes mischievous time. One of my favorite memories I had with Pa was when he talked about how he had been wanting to ride the slingshot ride at the Pavilion in Myrtle Beach. It's a ride that shoots you up into the air on a bungee cord. I agreed to go with him and we had a great time. As we were getting off the ride, we overheard some teenagers trying to convince their friend to go on the ride by saying, "Look, if that old man can do it, so can you." Pa was a humble guy, but everyone who knew him knows he liked to show off his academic and athletic prowess, especially to younger people. He would take long walks on the beach every morning when they lived in Myrtle Beach, and he loved to talk about how if somebody tried to walk faster past him, he would stay right behind them and then would laugh when they got tired and turned around, shocked and confused as to how an old man could be outlasting them. But that doesn't surprise any of us. After all, he has outlasted cancer for 24 years. Everyone who knew Pa was blessed, and we are grateful to have had as much time with him as we did. I know he's in a better place now, and finally and most deservedly, pain-free. I will strive to live the rest of my life like Pa, with a positive attitude, full of fun and adventure, and with lots of love for my family. His wisdom and memories will be passed down for generations. Pa, I love you forever.
I am Rachel Nisbet. I am the second daughter of Susie and Stuart Nisbet. And you guys all know Pa, and you knew all of his amazing qualities. So I'm not going to sit here and talk to you guys about how smart he was and how funny he was, because although these are true, I want to tell you about some of my favorite stories about him. Well, first of all, this is his sweatshirt, so I just thought it would be fitting that I wore this in the video. He gave it to me a few years ago, because once I got into grad school, and he said, "Go pack," and gave it to me. So I had to bring this. So one of my favorite memories of his wit was when a friend of his sent him an email with a problem, a math problem in it. And it was a box and it had some lines drawn that were labeled, some right angles, and they said, find the area of it. And this wasn't just a simple problem. You had many ways to solve it and different techniques that you had to use. And I remember sitting with him and talking about it for hours. And just seeing how smart he was and how strong his mind was just really inspired me. And I'm going into math education, so that has always stuck with me in my career and all my student teaching and stuff like that, just as an inspiration of just continuously learning. Another one of my favorite memories was, I think he had just gotten through a bout of chemo, and he had come up with this idea that he was going to build his own helicopter. So he employed Guy's help, and they were like driving down the road like 70 miles per hour. She was gunning it when he had some kind of some wing out the window just to measure the torque, the wind flow, that kind of things for his experiment to make this helicopter. And I just thought that that really showed how much of a fighter he was, and how up until the very end he was still exploring things and inventing things. One of my last favorite stories was, I remember I came to their beach house and I was bragging about the fact that I could drive the golf cart, because I just learned that in my lake house. I was probably like 12, 13 years old, and he said, well, I bet you can't drive it around the circle backwards. And so of course, being me, I was like, well, I want to learn how to do that. And so he taught me how to back up and how to look back, and how when you turn this way, it goes the other way, and how the wheels turn, and just little fun things like that. It was a summer day, and I was just driving around the neighborhood backwards in the golf cart. So Pa's always going to be remembered very fondly in all of our hearts, and these memories are going to last us forever.
Allie is the 6th grandchild and the daughter of Roger, Pa's 3rd son. She decided not to do a video because she already had a very special moment with Pa before he passed. She had the privilege of reading a beautiful letter that she had written to him. She loves Pa and misses him dearly.
Hi, I'm Sydney. I'm Peggy's daughter, and I'm the 5th grandchild in the line. Today I'm going to be reading something that I wrote in remembrance of Pa. From a young age, I was always Pa's #1 fan, and he showed me every day I was his too. I will never forget the time he had a lizard hanging from his ear because he knew it would make me laugh. He drew a happy face on the water tank in their garage, so when we pulled up to their house, the face would greet us every time. He used to always sneak me my favorite sweet treats, even when I wasn't allowed to have them. At 7, he taught me how to chlorophy a pool. At 8, he taught me how to drive a golf cart. He would let me speed around their hilly neighborhood going full speed, and I'm not sure it was really safe, but he'd never make me slow down. When I visited, we would be the first ones up in the morning. We would take a ride to get the morning paper, and he'd always let me put the coin in the machine. Whenever we would pull up to their gated community, he would say, "Open sesame," and it would magically open, even though I finally figured out it was motion censored. And I would plan out the day by making a written list of what we would do each hour, because going down to my grandparents' house was like the best thing ever for me. Most of all, he was more than a grandpa. When I was with him, he was my best friend. He was one of the kids. This is a memory of my youth I will forever treasure. Going into my adult life, I was able to have conversations with him about life, which established the core of the adult I am today, or who I aspire to be anyways. I found his ideas propelling, and he was never wary to share his knowledge or beliefs with me. He was completely transparent. I got to know his mind and heart through and through. I often wonder if he ever had a bad day, because somehow he was always happy. From my earliest memory of him, I can remember he has always been so filled with life and pure joy. I never knew Pa when he didn't have cancer. So it's amazing to me that while most people would take that diagnosis and say that it was the hardest 24 years of their life, he made them the best. And even until about a week ago, the last time I saw him, he was laying in the hospice bed so weak, but still had a smile on his face. It was the same Pa I always knew, right up to the end, cracking jokes and giving a thumbs up in pictures because he loved everyone and everything so fiercely. He made every moment his absolute best, so I aspire to be that way for the rest of my life to honor him.
My name is Brad, and I'm Peggy's son and Al's grandson. Growing up the only grandson in the Nisbet family, and also the youngest, I didn't have a lot in common with my cousins, who were all girls and older than me. So Pa was always a person I would go to talk to at family gatherings and celebrations. He would always show interest in the things I was interested in, whether it was Legos when I was a kid, or video games, or music, and he would always share any knowledge I wanted to know about science, math, or history. Whether it was from a science article he had read, or a story from his childhood, or the math behind his personal helicopter that he was trying to invent. And I always loved being around him because he was just such a fun and loving grandfather. One of the stories I remember about Pa was that he used to wake up really early in the morning and walk on the beach every day when they lived in Myrtle Beach. And when my family would go visit, me and him were always the first ones awake, so I would usually ride with him on the golf cart to the beach and walk with him. And one day we were walking on the beach, and we came across this baby shark that had washed ashore. And of course, it just smelled awful. But the two of us just thought it was the coolest thing. And he picked it up, and he would open its mouth and show me all the little rows of teeth that the baby shark had. And after marveling at it for a couple minutes, we decided we would bring it back home on the golf cart with us. Needless to say, when we got home, my mom was not as excited about our discovery. But it was just little memories like that, especially at the beach. Pa would teach us how to drive the golf cart, and walking along the beach, we would pick up seashells and fossilized shark teeth, and little memories like that were always lots of fun. As I grew up, I continued going to Pa to talk about things I was interested in. And as I got more interested in reading in around 8th grade, I would let him borrow a book after I had read it, or I would suggest a book that I was reading so we could discuss it when we both finished it. Pa also loved to read, and he would offer his insight in the book, which always added a whole new layer of complexity to the book that I had never considered. For example, I remember reading the book Life of Pi, and I recommended that Pa read it with me. The book is about basically a man who gets stranded at sea, and he has to survive on a lifeboat with zoo animals. There's a tiger and a monkey and a zebra. And of course, as an 8th grader, it interested me mostly as a survival story. But Pa, of course, with all his intelligence and experience, read the book and pointed out to me when we discussed it afterwards that the entire book was an allegory, meaning that it had two meanings. And while it was a book about surviving at the sea, it was also a book about a man in his journey with his own religious identity. And the animals were actually symbols for different religions. And when he pointed this out, it just shocked me because I had read the book literally, and Pa had seen an entire other figurative side of the book that only he could have seen, really. And he could always inspire a new perspective on things. And any discussion we had or anything that was going on, he'd always lend his time into connecting with my interests, whatever they were at the time. And Pa was always the most loving and supportive grandfather that he could be. And he always let me and all of the grandchildren know just how proud he was of all of us for doing whatever it was we were doing. I have so many great memories of him that I cherish and important lessons learned. I'm so thankful for all that he's done, not just as a grandfather, but also as a teacher, role model, supporter, and friend.